Chris has one of, if not the highest IQ ever recorded, somewhere between 190, 195, and 210. Chris is not here by way of fancy, distinguished professorship at such and such brand name university. Chris came here from a farm in Missouri after a career as a bouncer at bars around New York. Chris, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael.
Why is the smartest man in the world? Why is he living on a farm?
When I was a kid, we seldom had enough money to buy food or clothes. Sort of immersed myself in books and reading. What I wanted to do was pursue knowledge. It costs you nothing. I simply focused myself on, I want to know the truth about reality. I want to know what kind of world it is that I'm living in.
For those of us who have an IQ that's a little bit lower than yours.
IQ is where you focus. You can focus, marshal all your intellectual energy and focus it very tightly on one item that you've been presented with. And you're focusing on each one of those items. You're not seeing anything else. In addition to that depth and that focus, there is also aperture. Think of the mind as a kind of camera. Okay, what a lot of high IQ people have a lot of difficulty doing is widening their mental aperture. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to widen and narrow that aperture at will as you're doing the depth perception too.
Would you choose to be born very intelligent, or of middling intelligence, or of low intelligence?
What do you think the answer is? I wouldn't trade my mind for anyone else's. Nobody. Okay? Simply because I understand what the difference is now. You lose if you're not intelligent, you don't cultivate your intelligence and make the most of it, eventually you lose sight of truth entirely. And that's what has happened to most of these people. They're adapting, okay, we've got a narrative, I'm not going to get ahead in life. It's artificial, it's not like natural selection, where nature selects you, okay? You're being selected now by a bunch of ideologues. A bunch of people who want you to adopt a certain way of looking at things because they have all the money and power and they want to keep it forever.
You've lived the life of a blue-collar guy.
I wanted meaning in my life. It's like I say, I wanted meaning above all things. You decide up front when you're a young man, if you want to accomplish anything, who do you serve? Truth or mammon? You do have a choice, but you can't do both at once. Okay, it's either going to be truth, which is the same as God. I mean, truth and God are to some extent synonymous, or it's going to be money. Then you're going to be serving mammon, who happens to be the globalists at this point because they control all the wealth and power.
When young people are searching for meaning, as you say, you looked for meaning in your life. Search for meaning is man's primary motivator, more than sex, more than anything else.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, people always ask you this, why aren't you a billionaire?
Billionaires hate my guts. They have to give you the opportunity to make money. You need to have connections. In order to make money, you need to make friends out of people who have a lot of it.
If you'd had the connections, would you have striven to make money?
Not at the expense of truth. No, I'd have gone after meaning first. Now, I used to think that, well, it should be possible in theory to go after both. Then I discovered that that wasn't necessarily true. If you go after truth too hard, then you're going to make a bad impression on mammon. Eventually, you're going to be canceled out of any sort of comfortable life. I consider it to be better to seek truth and meaning and God than it is to pursue money. Now, who agrees with me these days? When I was 14, I was working on a ranch, punching cows, stacking hay, irrigating. I took two books with me, and one of them was a book by Albert Einstein on the theory of relativity, and the other one was a book by Bertrand Russell. It occurred to me, these two things really need to be put together, because reality isn't just geometric, which is what Einstein thought it was, nor is it just linguistic. It's a blend of the two. Then I realized, well, I've got to put together a theory, construct a theory in which reality is actually logico-geometric. And so that's where the CTMU came from.
And the CTMU is the cognitive theoretic model of the universe. This is your theory of everything.
My theory of everything, and it's all in the name. You've got cognitive theory, and of course, a theory is a kind of language, theoretic language. You've got a language, you've got a universe, and then the model is the mapping between them. CTMU says those are all the same thing.
If we're talking about a theory of everything, the first question we have to establish, does God exist?
Yes. The reality has an identity. The identity is that as which something exists. Matter of fact, when you say the word reality, you're naming an identity.
It just reminds me of of Moses at the burning bush. It says, "Who shall I tell the people that you are?" Talking to God. And God says, "Tell them I am that I am."
That's right.
I am identity itself. I'm being himself.
That's exactly right. So you come up with that identity and then you search it for its properties. You see, once you've built the preliminary framework, then you start deducing the properties of this identity, and you find out that those properties match those of God as described in most of the world's major religions. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Vedism. Of course, Hinduism and Vedism, they have a God. Taoism, their central principle is the way, or the Tao, okay? And they don't see Tao as God. Buddhism, they are trying basically to achieve sunyata, or emptiness. That concept of pure consciousness is what it is. Everybody has the Tao. Everybody, has sunyata, which is pure syntax, right? Pure cognition with no instantiation. Then you've got what the Abrahamic religions call God. It's all the same thing. Okay, are its properties such that you can deny the existence of God, or are its properties such that God definitely has to exist? And the answer is, God exists. Properties of the central substance and central principle of reality, those properties are attributed to God.
How do I make sense of consciousness?
You need a certain kind of quantum. That quantum is called an identity operator. God is the identity. The identity operator has, basically it takes input from the outside world, recognizes it or accepts it using syntax, processes it, and then returns it to the world as external state. Consciousness exists in every part of the universe because those are the quanta.
That's what I'm asking. Are you telling me that this table is conscious?
In that sense, yes. Generically conscious. It's relying on our consciousness to do it. There's levels of quanta, okay? These are tertiary quanta. They're all put together using physical localistic forces, right? But those are underdeterminative. They don't fully determine what happens. So what determines events? We do. We don't know how we do it, but we do it. When everybody's will is put together, we're all creating the best possible universe we can for ourselves. And God is what harmonizes all of our different perspectives and makes things happen for all of us at the same time.
Before I let you go, people are going to be asking, what should I do in my own life?
Search for God. Ask God to establish a personal relationship with you. There's this soul that attaches you to God. You can receive the will of God into yourself, to some extent the power of God into yourself, but you've got to be receptive. If you're not receptive, then you're cutting yourself off from God. Once you do that, then you do not share the identity of reality itself. Once your physical body expires, there is nothing that will carry you because you have denied it and rejected it.